To any of the 15-year-olds watching this who have never seen a game manual before, first off, you're probably too young for this channel anyway. But basically, video games used to come with a booklet on the inside of the game case cover, giving you a brief synopsis of the plot, explaining how to play the game, and how vital features work like power-ups. Even back when games did in-game tutorials, there would still be a manual explaining the mechanics and how the game works in more depth. And the in-game tutorial would usually be brief and all at the beginning of the game. Nowadays, games seem to just explain the entire game to you as it's happening. When I bought my PS4, the first modern console I've bought in years, I was disappointed that none of the games came with manuals anymore, just some stupid promotion for some other game or a PlayStation store code for like a PlayStation theme or something. Apparently the reason Ubisoft gave for not including manuals anymore was because it'd be better for the environment. We all know that's a lie. We all know the real reason they did it was to save a quick buck on paper printing. And because nobody looked at those things anyway. Except for this guy. Today we're gonna be taking a look at some of the manuals for the Persona games, to see what kind of knowledge they have to impart on us. Let's start with the first Persona game. The only one I could find was the PlayStation Classic Manual, with all the localization stuff that you guys love. So of course, the characters are going to be referred to by their localized names. I find Brad's description to be kind of peculiar. He's very strong, but stays away from people who could kick his butt. So against Buford from Phineas and Ferb, he would wipe the floor with him, but with Vegeta, he'd be keeping him at a spear length away. Brad's good at handling people, and teachers like him. I haven't really seen much of that second thing, but in the Snow Queen route, he does look out after the other students at the school if you choose not to take him into your party. Wait. Ms. Smith is a good-looking teacher and does not adhere to the rules. You've got your default control scheme, which is pretty awkward in the original game. Standard stuff. They also explain the different types of maps in the game. The overworld is referred to as the 2D map, and the dungeons are referred to as the 3D dungeon. The isometric rooms are referred to as the adventure map. The pause menu is referred to as the command screen. There's a basic explanation of what a persona is. I suppose a game manual isn't really the best place to start unpacking all that Jungian psychology, so that's fine. The game also goes over some basic RPG mechanics like buying and selling items, healing, and gambling for coins to get items. Not an uncommon thing back then. It also goes into detailed instructions on how to fuse personas. It even explains explicitly that you can fuse personas up to 10 levels higher than your main character, which may not be clear when playing for the first time, and that maxed ranked personas will produce items upon dismissing them. Then it goes over your battle options, for the first menu only. It doesn't explain anything about the individual commands for characters or the battle grid system at all. There's no explanation of contacting demons either, other than how the moon phase affects the mood shifts of demons. It just ends on a hints page with obvious tips such as talking to NPCs and save often. Wait a sec. If you encounter seemingly dead-end dungeons or rooms, look for a hidden device. Do not give up. Check suspicious things or walls. Another way will become clear to you. Okay, most of the time that's not the case. Most dead ends are just that, dead ends. I mean, yeah, some of the dead ends lead to pitfalls and some empty rooms may have hidden items, but now the player is gonna be painstakingly inspecting every single dead end in all of those elaborate mazes when they really don't have to. Overall, I would say it's still pretty solid. I just wish they could have explained demon contact a little better. I couldn't find scans of the original Megami Ibunroku, but someone did share a collage of some pictures they took of it on Reddit. Damn, this looks infinitely better than the bland PlayStation Classic manual. But then again, PlayStation Classic came with all sorts of ROMs packed into it, so I guess they couldn't feasibly make stylized manuals for all of them. I found a link to some place called GameManual.net that apparently had the manual for Persona 2 Innocent Sin, but the Cloudflare host is dead. I couldn't find any scans for the Eternal Punishment manual either. You can sell your soul to get one online though. If anyone has any scans that they want to share of either, I might do a part 2 of this video. I did find something interesting about an old GameFAQs walkthrough. A Twitter user by the handle of GramSig was following a guide for Innocent Sin on GameFAQs, made by that guy 4913, when suddenly, on May 12th of this year, he discovered the walkthrough had been updated. The writer apparently became a born-again Christian and wrote a long rant denouncing the game, even getting rid of the HTML menu that let you jump to where you were in the walkthrough. Contrary to popular belief, dying is not cool. Thank you, that guy 4913. Thank you. Now, the satanic panic that this guy is having over this game is pretty stupid, but he does have a point when he says the game is absurdly easy and there are plenty of other walkthroughs, and ultimately he did this because he couldn't take it down himself. This doesn't justify him being a dick though. GameFAQs did eventually take down the guide. It is no longer available. What does this have to do with game manuals? Nothing. I just thought this was worth documenting on video. Okay, now this is where things start to get interesting. Persona 3 introduces a boatload of new mechanics that require explaining. I'm not going to cover everything, but I'll try to cover most of what's important. Hold up. Piracy? The unauthorized reproduction of all or any game part of this product and unauthorized use of registered trademarks are likely to constitute a criminal offense. If you suspect this game product is an unauthorized copy, or have any other information about pirate product, please call your local customer service number given at the back of this manual. Welp, guess you guys are gonna have to report me to one of these numbers here. Anyway, let's get back to the actual content of the manual. Damn, the artwork on the prologue page is actually pretty sweet. They also give a much better explanation of what a persona is, in the context of this universe at least. I love how it looks like they just pasted Igor wherever they could because they forgot and shoehorned him in at the last minute, but damn it, there was no reason not to include Elizabeth, other than to save a page of paper. Okay, starting the game. This is where they start explaining FES exclusive stuff, how you import your data from the original Persona 3, the journey, the answer, the new hard mode, and they even tease weapon fusion at you. They don't really explain how they work, but they do encourage you to use it by asking you, how strong a weapon can you make? God, if only you all knew. Now it explains how the day cycle works in-game. They even have a highlighted section explaining holidays. I like how they give pretty good descriptions of every time of the day except afternoon. They just put nothing. They also explain just about every place you can go to in the game, which is pretty nice. They even highlight the section telling you where to find the one-way fast travel guy. Okay, let's move on to dungeon crawling. There's some pretty important info here. They explain physical condition, player and enemy advantages, map icons, access points, encounters, and party commands outside of battle. They also tell you to avoid the Reaper like the plague. The game actually recommends using the Prioritize Defeat Shadows command as an effective way of grinding. I know that experience is split between your party members in battles, so fighting alone would net you more experience, but it never actually occurred to me that this might also apply to when they beat enemies on their own. I'll have to try it the next time I play the game. They explain persona mechanics pretty well. They explain all the different elements and affinities, as well as what each stat does. It doesn't mention anything about luck affecting status ailments, which explains why they're usually so bad. They list all the status ailments too. That would have been really helpful in Persona 1. Another nice thing is that they explain how to grind your social attributes, charm, courage, and academics. In the battle mechanics section, they only explain the tactic commands you have at the beginning of the game, but I guess they're all named pretty straightforward anyway. They also explained some of the shortcut buttons, like pressing square to pass your turn, analyzing, and viewing the turn order. The only thing I wish was that they stressed these things more, like they did with some of the other things they've highlighted. They give a step-by-step explanation of how all-out attacks work, and they also give a list of about half the fusion spells in the game. It's probably better they don't tell the player about Armageddon so early. They do list a couple pretty good ones though. Best Friends is essentially Heat Riser, Thunder Call is a weaker Thunder Rain that hits all foes, and Dreamfest is just straight up busted. One final thing I want to cover is that when explaining fusion, they actually give you a fusion table for normal two-way fusions. I question why they didn't bother putting the one for three-way fusions. The three-way table is literally just the same thing, but it fills all the empty spaces. Let's look at the portable version next while we're at it. Well, they put the customer service numbers on the page next to the piracy warning this time. Most of the explanations are the same, but using screenshots of the female protagonist gameplay as examples, which makes sense. This is her game, basically. They do explain some of the new mechanics introduced, such as rescuing people and dark zones, but it's mostly the same thing. And finally, let's take a look at the Persona 4 manual. The back cover actually has a list of soundtracks on the back. The character profiles list Kanji, even though he's not a character you meet right off the bat like everyone else. They also fail to mention Dojima or Nanako, while they had the decency to mention Ikutsuki in the Persona 3 manual. Everything else is essentially the same as Persona 3. The shortened day cycle only takes up one section instead of 2 whole pages. Once again, only a few new things are mentioned here, and a lot of the old stuff is condensed. There are a few interesting things they added in this manual. They explained the mythology of all the main characters' personas. Yes, even the ones they didn't mention. They also added a glossary to try to give some context to some of the Japanese terminology and culture in this game, which I really appreciate as a Westerner who knows very little about it. Man, Persona 5 could have really used that. What an inconvenient point to stop including that kind of stuff with the game. Well, that's all I got for you. I'm still playing through Innocent Sin. I want to make a video about it eventually, but I've got some other video ideas I can shove between then and now. Thanks for watching. Love you. Bye.